Hello everyone, this is Tom from LA. I'm going to talk today about a book that is not very well known. Some of you will probably know it, but I think it's a very underappreciated novel. It's a historic novel, very underappreciated for how great I think it is, and pretty much everyone who read it think it is. So the book is called The Brothers Askenazi by Israel J. Singer. This is obviously the Italian edition. I'm going to show the English edition as well. The Brothers Askenazi is, and this is in my personal experience, obviously being fairly ignorant about Yiddish literature, I wanted to read something by Isaac Singer, the Nobel Prize winner. I went out and bought myself this I Singer book, thinking that it was Isaac, but it was actually his brothers, Israel. And what an incredible, great surprise it was, because I love this book with all my heart. It's basically as deep as one of the Russian great novels, as gripping as Les Miserables by Victor Hugo, with this big, huge difference that almost nobody, at least that I talk to or know, seems to know it. So first of all, a comment about the author. Israel Singer was the older brother of the Singer brothers, both authors. He was an author who wrote with a lot of strength. What I mean by authors who write with strength is that there are authors who have a way to present reality in its brutal, cruel nature, not only without idealistic lenses, but also with pragmatism. And this, in my opinion, makes the writing usually a little tighter, more concise and to the point. And it also feels sometimes as if the writing has a sort of physical power, that power that you need to ignore all the fuss and subtleties and go really straight to the point. It might sound a little strange, but I really believe that a writer, to be a great writer, also needs to be to have a certain physical strength as well as a mental strength, because of how grueling the job of a writer is. You can sense that Israel Singer was a pragmatic man also from his very deep understanding of commerce, economics, trade, and politics of his time. He was an experienced reporter and journalist, and I think it's almost impossible to write at this level without infusing your work with a lot of your emotional and ideological bias, which obviously Israel Singer did as well. However, the great thing about his books is that he didn't write with any specific political bias or too strong of a political bias. His heart was fully and mainly with the Jewish people, and for anything else, he was pretty much out of the way. The Brothers Askenazi is the story of two twin brothers and of the Jewish community where they were born in the Polish city of Lodz at the end of the 19th century. The plot follows a really great cast of characters, but mainly the fiercely intelligent Max, or Sinka Meyer, who, because of his greed and ruthlessness, could very well have been painted as the bad guy in a lesser novel, while in this novel he becomes a really fully fleshed and extremely real human being with darkness and light, who tries to live his life as best as he can despite all of his flaws and weaknesses and addictions. Thanks to his skills and the grit coming from being born with clear physical disadvantages from his brother, especially when compared to his brother, who was tall, strong, and handsome, twin brother, Max manages to go very far in his life. He lives through industrialization, socialism, and all the turmoil of the turn of the century. This is really historical fiction at its best, and it's so obvious that whatever the author described at least for the most part, he had been there, he had witnessed it with his own eyes, or heard about it in detail, because he's so precise and realistic about and authentic. And this authenticity is also what makes this novel an incredible masterwork. So it's kind of funny that, as I said, I didn't even know that Israel Singer was the older brother of the Nobel Prize recipient novelist Isaac Singer. Here is where things get a little bit complicated, because the history of the two brothers is really interesting. They had a really interesting relationship, and they were different in their own genius, in a sense. The Brothers Askenazi was the first book that Israel Singer published after arriving in New York from Warsaw in 1934. Its ambition and range were almost unprecedented in Yiddish literature, and he certainly called comparisons to Tolstoy, the great Russians. One of the contemporary critics described this novel as the greatest Russian novel ever written in Yiddish. It was translated in English and published in 1936. It went straight to the top of the New York Times bestseller list, together with Gone with the Wind at the time. Israel's Singer's reputation had reached its top, and his fans began to hope that he would go on to win the Nobel Prize. But by 1944, the author was dead of a massive and sudden heart attack. And with his death, his younger brother Isaac, who had been a little lost as an immigrant living in the shadow of his powerful brother, could finally unleash his talents and go on to build his own career. The great ambitions of this novel brought a new scope into Yiddish literature, and they carry the weight of massive social and political forces, collisions of characters tracing troubled moments of history. And it's really ironic that brotherly rivalry is actually part of a major part or central part of the plot itself. In the plot, the two brothers Max and Jacob. Jacob is the more physically gifted and charming of the two. For him, the acquisition of love and riches seems to happen naturally, while for Max, he must devote his every waking hour to achieving his goal of becoming the so-called king of Lotz, this city whose devotion to the profit motive is almost the counterpart to Max's personality himself in the textile industry. The details present in the book, the narration about the textile industry at the time, are really fascinating. Israel, his Singer, had been an early admirer of Bolshevism. He was, although this type of infatuation was nevertheless cured almost by a trip he took to Russia for a month or a couple of months, where he stumbled upon a lot of expressions of anti-Semitism, and the fury that he had as a reaction to that can be certainly felt. It's almost palpable in these pages towards anti-Semitism that was in some environments and in some circles was certainly very present in those days as well. In any case, I'm very, very strongly recommending to anybody this novel. It's an epic novel that doesn't get all the praise and success and love that it deserves, because it's so great. Everybody who puts their hands on it and their eyes on it ends up loving it, and then moving on to reading other books by Israel Singer. Maybe I'll talk about his other books a little bit later on. But in any case, thank you for watching this couple of thoughts, and please add your comments below if you have any about Israel Singer and his Brothers Askenazi.